Welcome back to Dirty 20, everybody. We are back for our second episode in our Home Brewing with Erik series. And welcome back, Erik. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very good, and welcome back to my little home brewing cellar, which I'm sitting
Yes.
in.
Your
Um,
dungeon, exactly, where you
that's
murder
right.
people and make
Uh,
alcoholic beverages out of them.
That's right. And how about you? Are you well?
Good. Yes, very good. I'm super excited because today we're asking a kind of, I want to say almost a philosophical question. But the question is, what is homebrew and why do we do it?
I'm gonna immediately ruin the whole philosophy of the question
Okay,
by giving you the definition.
go on, do it. The Oxford
Uh,
English Dictionary. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, home brewing is such a vague term for most people.
true.
House
What
rules,
is what
etc.
is it?
Uh,
Yeah.
the definition is literally any rule or piece of content that isn't published in one of the official rule books.
Okay.
And what's really interesting about that is that if you listen to that and take an example here,
Hmm.
critical success, natural 20 on an ability check.
Hmm.
As far as I'm aware, because there are quite a few D&D 5e rule books now,
Hmm.
that's not a rule that's written anywhere, which makes
Really?
it
It's not
homebrew.
in any. It's not in any of the books. Critical.
No, and natural ones for ability checks. It comes in combat,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yes.
critical hits,
Right.
etc., but not for ability checks.
That is very
Um,
true, actually. I have heard people say that before. So let me
mm,
ask you a question then. People sometimes say homebrew when they mean house rules, when they mean something, raw. You also see that. Can you define a little bit like what the difference? What is the difference between raw and, house rules and stuff like that?
yeah. I mean, first off, the two things people talk about is raw, which is rules as written,
Hmm.
versus rules as intended. And that's like how you interpret the rules, where there's vague bits.
Okay.
And raw then gets used as saying, okay, only what's actually written in the books, nothing else.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
And can you think of an example of something that you use kind of rules as written?
Almost, I mean, the action economy is
Okay.
usually a good example.
Hmm.
Very rarely, with very few exceptions, do I change what you can do with an action or a bonus action. They
Right.
remain very,
Right. It's a big part. It's a big part of
fundamental.
the rules. For those of
Yeah,
you who might not be familiar, the action economy is basically the actions that your character has in a turn, right? So you
yeah.
have an action, you have a reaction, you have a bonus action, and you have, is it one free action or object interaction, I think it's called,
Yeah,
something like that,
and movement.
and movement.
Um, but just to continue on the same question there, then, that when it comes to house rules, then, and
Hmm.
moving on towards homebrew,
Hmm.
technically they're all the same thing. People tend to mean that house rules are minor tweaks, such
Hmm.
as, okay, instead of rolling the damage dice twice on a critical, we will maximize one of
Right.
the dice
Which
or
is a good
maximize the
example of
damage.
what we do in our games, right? We
Yeah,
very
exactly.
often do that. So we
Often referred to
roll.
now as heroic criticals.
Right. Yes. And what is the exact formula?
So you roll your damage as usual, and
Hmm.
then whatever damage dice you rolled, you add again, but maximized. And the
Right.
idea there is behind, which is what I'm going to come down to here, is
Hmm.
because that's more fun, because
Hmm.
your critical strike will always deal more damage than a normal strike. Whilst
Right.
rules as written, raw, you can actually roll a double one, even with two dice, and deal less damage with your critical than it otherwise would. And
Excellent. Yeah.
similar with the ability checks. Natural 20 on an ability check, doing something amazing is fun.
Hmm. Which brings us to the second part of this question is why homebrew, right? And I
Yeah.
think that that philosophically, again, is my favorite reason for it. Is do it
Yeah.
for fun, right? Um, but can you expand on that a little bit? Like
Yeah.
why do you feel that home brewing is like central to D&D?
So this is where it gets philosophical. So I agree. The second question is a lot more so. And it is very nebulous because it becomes about taste and flavor. You know, it's like arguing whether raspberry or strawberry ice cream is better, right? Or something similar. That it becomes nebulous and it becomes about what your group enjoys.
Right.
But the key reasons to do it is either because there's something you don't like in the rules as written, something that makes it slow or your group doesn't like or doesn't seem to like it becomes jarring for how you play, or because you have this idea and you go, oh, I wish there was rules for this idea.
Right.
And then the last one, I think, which is about setting and theme. There's something you want to represent an aspect of your world in the rules, and it doesn't, so you need to change it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a good example is a lot of fantasy role playing games and D&D in particular does feel like it has a kind of medieval
Yeah.
setting to it, time setting to it. But like they've done in fifth edition, I think, and I like to do as well. I like to kind of start pushing it towards a Renaissance style technological level, where like gunpowder starts becoming a thing, and these are all things that you can kind of add and tweak. But I did want to mention something because it did come up when I was talking to Gallifile about some of his adjustments to Star Wars 5e, and the DMG has a lot of stuff in there, like a lot of incredible suggestions. And I've owned the DMG for such a long time just because you have to, right? The core books, the player's handbook, the dungeon master's guide, and the monster manual are just kind of books that you need to have. But I haven't honestly dived into the DMG as much as I think I probably should have. Have you kind of read into it and seen some of the stuff that they suggest and talk about in there?
So it is really interesting, and I just want to preface here now that I really like fifth edition
Yes,
for
we
many
do. We
many
love it.
reasons, and we are gonna delve in and start sort of criticizing bits. And obviously, there are lots of things I've gotten rid of because I don't like it, but that doesn't mean I don't like it as a whole. I like
No, yeah.
the staple, and yeah, the DMG is interesting. I always dislike that it's a little half baked, but it has some amazing ideas. It has some rules for madness. It has, the whole alternate rule for doing intimidation strength checks,
Yes,
where you
the
add your
alternate
strength
abilities. Yeah,
modifier
yeah.
to sort of like be the big imposing, like warrior rather than trying to sling an insult.
Right.
It's all in there. A lot of things that you can even go and get from third party sources is actually already in there. There is a
Yeah,
lot,
it is
including
interesting.
firearms.
Yes, I will say though that, and this is, again, we love fifth edition, but one of the small gripes is just the way that a lot of times the information is presented.
Yeah,
It's not like super readable. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And
And
so
and
often,
it
you miss out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it is, as I said, it's a little half baked because the ideas are often really good, the implementation pretty decent, but it's clear that they then just moved on to the next one. They just sort of left it there, moved on. And I think the recent book, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, had a few really interesting chapters towards the end, session 0 and things, but it was
Yes.
left so threadbare that it almost served as a tiny taster without any pointers of where should I go next
Right.
to build on this, which is a shame. But that's where our homebrewing comes in, because if we don't like it, let's do some tweaks.
Exactly. And I think that that also kind of brings us to kind of the last point on why might you feel like you want to change it is you might feel that something is out of balance, right? That it's
Yes,
not
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
working properly. And you might have an idea for how it could do, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, one of the big ones that we've all often talked about on the channel, and you and I have discussed a lot, is the magic system, right? The Vancian magic. We also talked about it with Gallifile and stuff like that. And a lot of people who are homebrewers kind of gravitate a little bit towards that, don't they? As a possible place to change things. But next episode, we're going to be talking about some different things that are often discussed for such as like initiative. What else are we going to talk about?
Yeah, now when we have sort of established what homebrewing is, etc., we'll start diving into what the most common versions of homebrew is, which is often adding more class options, adding more spells, adding, you know, new magic items, etc. And as you said, certain rules such as initiative with the magic system, which a lot of people have a little bit of friction against, can be a little hard to sort of comprehend properly. So people tend to sort of start messing with it a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, so thank you so much for watching. As always, please like, subscribe, share this with your friends, family, anyone who wants to get into D&D. Or maybe, you know, you're a DM who is looking to start doing more and more homebrew, you know. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts, any questions you might have. And in a future video, we'll try and answer them. And as always, keep slaying.
Keep slaying.
If you've enjoyed this content, then please smash that like button, subscribe, share this around online, and come and visit our website, www.lavictoriaproductions.com, to see all our past episodes, as well as our blog posts and all the stuff that we're currently working on at La Victoria Productions. Why not reach out to us and tell us what you think of our videos? You can reach us on Twitter. At Mouth La Victoria is our producer. We are also on Instagram. I am Enano LVP, and our producer is Jazzy J Cherot. We're also La Victoria Productions on Facebook and LinkedIn. Come on by and let us know what you think.